Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Hired Geek Podcast, episode number 176, with Greg Rosenbaum and Julia Shatilo from South by Southwest EDU, talking about this year's conference, the themes and sessions that they're really excited about, as well as just generally ways to get involved for folks who are interested, looking ahead to the future as in-person events, they resumed last year, and for South by and for a lot of other events. I know a lot of folks are probably thinking about getting it back out to conferences, so they've got some great advice for being involved. This is an event that I love, so I'm really grateful for the space to chat more about it and why I love it so much. So definitely connect with Greg and Julia and check out South by Southwest EDU, the conference happening next month in March in Austin, Texas. So I hope to see folks there. But without further ado, this is episode number 176 with Greg and Julia. We are here to talk about what has quickly become one of my favorite events every year after attending my first one last year. After all of us taking a long break from in-person events, South by Southwest EDU came back in person last year. I got the opportunity to go, had an amazing time, and looking forward to getting out to more events. But I feel like, starting off with just kudos and outpourings of love. I feel like, it's such a great professional home for me that I found as sort of, content creator, ed tech, sort of off to the sides and margins, where it's a place where everybody's kind of welcome and kind of colliding with each other and all that cool stuff. So we'll talk more about this event that's coming up again this year in Austin in March. We will start out, though, as we always do, with our guests introducing themselves, giving brief overviews of their professional backgrounds and how they got to be where they are today. We'll start with you, Greg, and then go to Julia.
Just so excited to be here. I love that you called out South by Southwest EDU as a professional home. I think that's always been sort of an aspiration for us. And to hear you say it back on air was wonderful. So I'm Greg Rosenbaum. I'm the Senior Director for South by Southwest EDU. I joined South by Southwest back in 2010 to help launch the first ever South by Southwest EDU, and have had the privilege of growing an event and an amazing team and working with a really amazing group of people ever since then to expand it from what was sort of a 800-person K-12 Texas-focused event into what is now a national and international with over 40 or 50 countries represented, convening. And I've been passionate about education my whole life. This was sort of my first gig out of college, and it's been a wonderful growth journey. I'll pass it over to Julia.
First and foremost, thank you again, Dustin, for having us. It's been really exciting to have you join us at the event last year, and we're really looking forward to having you join us again for this March as well. I'm Julia Shatilo. I am the Programming Director for South by Southwest EDU, so I oversee all of our conference and festival programming components. So everything from our sessions and workshops to our different, more kind of curated programming, like our film series and our performance series, competitions, keynotes featured, things like that. My first South by Southwest EDU was in 2014. I actually joined the team in a different capacity. I used to work a little bit more with specific sessions, and then I worked in the press and publicity side of things for a while before moving on to overseeing the program in 2016, I believe. But I actually got my start in events at South by Southwest when I was in college. I went to the University of Texas at Austin here. But completely working on different verticals, not an EDU, but really fell in love with community building in that sense. And then went on to work a little bit in cultural administration and communications, cultural development and museums before coming back to South by Southwest and joining the EDU team. And as Greg mentioned, I can only echo that it's been a really great experience and a privilege to work with not only internally a great group of people to build the event and build the community, but really getting the chance to meet so many people that are passionate about education and that are really working to move the needle forward. It's a big privilege to do what we do every single year. And yeah, it's full circle. Great to talk about it as well.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny too that it's only been around for now a little over 10 years, but I think I think it's just so solidified. Again, that kind of very unique space, I think, amidst all the kind of other conferences that I've been to or know of and everything. But then I'm also thinking of just the pandemic time warp, where it's just that felt like it was so much longer, where it's just oh, no. Again, it was only, that lasted, and, it's kind of, we're on the outskirts of it, that it's been something that is so unique, again, that brings together K through 12, higher ed, nonprofits, policymakers, and all this kind of stuff. So, for folks who may not know, and I guess to hear it from somebody who's there at the beginning, Greg, what is South by Southwest EDU?
So South by Southwest EDU really started as an idea that the energy that has made South by Southwest what it is, which started in the 1980s as a music festival, turned into a film and technology conference and festival, and has kind of grown, is now in its 36th, 37th year of convening. But really, South by Southwest has always stood for convergence convenings and bringing disparate communities within different spaces together to really energize and support creativity and creative professionals to achieve their dreams. And we had seen so many shifts happening in education over the course of that journey for South by Southwest in the 80s and the 90s and the early aughts. But coming out of the recession and in the transformation of schools as they started to adopt technology, we sort of saw this opportunity to create a forum for people to come together and have conversations about what was changing in education in sort of a unique way. And so we've built over the last 13 years this conference and festival convening. It's the 4 days before the rest of South by Southwest kicks off, which is then another 10 days in Austin, Texas. It is, we talk about it being a conference and festival so that there's sort of like a full holistic way to approach the event and the convening, and Julia will speak more to that. But I think the other part that makes it really unique, which you sort of alluded to, Dustin, has been we've really worked hard over the course of building the community and the event to bring together all the stakeholders within education and learning. We know learning starts at a very young age in early learning, and it kind of transitions into kindergarten through 12th grade, goes into higher education and workforce development, and then kind of follows us throughout our lives. And so if we're not connecting the dots between all those different communities and all the stakeholders at each of those sections, we're maybe missing some opportunities to really talk about development for students and for learners in a way that is meaningful. And so that's always been sort of like the North Star for our work here at South by Southwest EDU and how to bring that all together. And we do it through this conference and festival piece, which I'll pass it over to Julia to maybe talk a little bit more about.
So yeah, in terms of kind of the nuts and bolts for folks that may be interested, never attended before, we are a conference and festival like the other South by Southwest events. And what that means for us, we're of course not specifically a music festival or a film festival, but we do try to bring that South by Southwest spirit of creativity to the education space. So on the conference side of things, we'll host upwards of 300, 350 sessions across the 4 days of South by Southwest EDU across a variety of different session topics and learning experience formats. So, to Greg's point, that because, we really try to bring all aspects of the education community together, we don't necessarily have a theme every year, but we do try to pay attention to obviously timely topics in current events around education, but also just timely instructional practices, pedagogies, things like that. So we'll have everything from short solo presentations to panel discussions to more in-depth workshops, podcasts we're really excited to host as well, mentoring opportunities, things like that. And that's what we consider kind of the conference element of the event. We're also really excited that a lot of our conference content for a number of years now, we've been able to work with the with the Association of Texas Professional Educators to provide continuing professional education credits to our educator community. That's something that's really important to us. And that's what we also focus our conference content on. And then on the festival side of things, like I said, we don't, we're not necessarily a music festival or anything like that, but we do host a number of unique opportunities and engagements for our community. We run 2 competitions. Our launch startup competition is for early stage educational products and services. That's been going for, I want to say, 12 years now. And so that's always a really big, high energy and creative opportunity at the event. We also run our student startup competition, which invites high school students from all around the world to apply and pitch their ideas. These aren't necessarily education focused products, but we're really looking to celebrate teen entrepreneurship and really kind of the future of entrepreneurship and startups with that competition. We also run a film program where we feature educational documentaries and features about issues in the education space from all around the world, a lot of really big, powerful topics and ways that, educators can use that medium in their classrooms as well. And our performance series, which is similar, but also highlights the performing arts. So we've had the distinct pleasure of having spoken word and musical performances, dance, theater, kind of everything in between. And that's really something that we like to highlight, not only from kind of our roots from the South by Music community and the arts focus there, but just really highlighting the big power that the arts have, obviously, in classrooms. No event would be complete without a whole host of great networking opportunities. We have everything from parties and socials to morning hikes, walking tours around Austin, pop-up dinners, structured meetups. Really great opportunities for folks just to meet like-minded people, to start kind of their own next creative projects. And the South by Southwest EDU Expo, which really, focuses on the future of learning, highlighting a lot of great innovations this year. We're really excited to partner with Learn Platform on the expo to not only host different vendors and displays, but also we have a startup village and some programming spaces in there. So really trying to just create a lot of energy, and to help kind of as many people share the great work and ideas that they're working on, with a lot of people all in 4 days. But that's a little bit more on the event itself.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate you sharing all that because I think, that's something else that sets it apart. Like, is that there's such a sort of rich, vibrant, array of options. And I tried to like dabble in as much as I could last year, just to kind of see like, oh, this is really great. I love the socials. Like, as somebody who works remote, it's just like, that's like such a huge, thing for me of like getting out to an event is like, I want to network and all that. So it's like, what's kind of the pathway that I want to go for that. And then, something else that I'll just share to kind of capture this anecdote on the podcast, that I've shared with a lot of people elsewhere is that when I went on the expo floor last year, I met somebody from Pathify where I now work. So it was like a seed that was planted. I had no idea about the company ever, saw what they did, thought it was really cool. And then months and months later, ended up working for them because they saw that I was available. And, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. You guys do cool work. And so it was a great serendipity, kind of thing. And, that'll constantly just be a kind of a part of my professional story is that encounter there. So I'm very grateful for that. But, I know last year, I was there as part of the podcast stage, which was a new thing. So I don't know if there's anything like kind of brand new for this year or just anything you're excited to continue to do or kind of iterate on or whatever. But and we'll stick with you, Julia, to start this one off. But just sort of what you're excited about for the conference this year. If they're like you said, that you're not obviously like having like a theme for the whole event, but with kind of current events of this moment, like what are the themes that you're seeing kind of emerging for the event this year?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that overall, what I'm personally excited about, and this is maybe a little bit more broad, but last year we were just so overwhelmingly not just excited and on a certain level relieved, but also just so moved to see the energy and the passion that people brought to a return to in-person events in 2022. I think that was, I can't lie. I think all of us were a little, trepidatious as to how it would go. It would be the first, kind of big first foray back. And we had so many people that just expressed how excited and how happy they were to be there. And I think that more so than any one specific session where somebody, in my position, I love my children equally. So, I can't pick one, but I think that above all was just the most gratifying thing and the most exciting thing and the most almost just kind of momentum building thing for us looking forward towards the 2023 event. So, we're really looking forward to building off of again that energy, but also exploring it. It's more than just about surviving the present. Now it's really looking toward the future, and something that we aim to do every year, kind of once the dust settles, once everybody's gotten a little bit of sleep post event, is really think about yeah, what do we want to create with the next year? And again, we don't do the themes like you mentioned again, but something that from a programming standpoint that we really aimed to kind of deliver with this year's program is we wanted a program that was unexpected, that was valuable to our community, that was, again, energizing, that was inclusive and future forward. We're always, looking ahead to see what is on the horizon. And so it's always interesting to see which trends, are new, but also think some trends that are kind of staying the course in terms of still building out. Specifically, in the higher education sector, we're paying attention to the blending of higher education in the workforce. That's not necessarily obviously a new trend, but it's definitely something that, as globally, things and skills and economies are shifting, that's always going to be a big point for us. And I would say the new part of it is what are the specific variables that we're working with, and seeing how things shift. You know, a couple, real sessions that we're excited about that kind of touch on this topic specifically is, we'll have Kendra Scott in conversation with her colleague from the University of Texas at Austin, speaking about female students and female entrepreneurship and kind of the next wave there. We're really excited about. We also have a really great session that speaks to the formerly incarcerated individuals and their pathway to the workforce through higher education. We'll have Jobs for the Future, the formerly incarcerated college graduates network, speaking on that topic, in addition to other great speakers. Another trend in the higher ed space that we're thinking about is what's the role of traditional institutions versus non-traditional and alternative spaces. We have a great talk on that one that's speaking about, what is college worth it, with folks like the Minerva Project, Outlier.org, JFF again. So I think just the continual kind of evolution and innovation in a lot of spaces is something that we're really excited about. But also just seeing how creative different elements of our community are. Not only is that speaking to specific sessions and specific topics, but like I mentioned, we'll have a performance this year that is really highlighting a student ensemble from New Jersey City University, led by Martha Mook, who used to be a collaborator with David Bowie, and really going through his creative process and what that means from a pedagogical standpoint. We also have, obviously, a lot of great work being done by our competition finalists and different films that, again, touch on these different topics. So, I mean, big shout out, I will say, I can't not mention the session, but I'm really excited to hear from the University of Virginia. Will be speaking about Caveman and Confessions of a College Mascot. So it's everything from these bigger conversations around people to these more kind of specific things that all play a role in, to what Greg mentioned, in kind of a student's journey, whether it's these big global topics that really define and determine the entire ecosystem of what education is, to the day-to-day either college experience or classroom experience or mental health support, which is such a big topic every year. So there's really things like that. Some other trends that we're seeing outside of just, again, personal things to be excited about, but a lot on student agency and voice, both from higher ed and in the K-12 space, whether that is student advocacy work, which is really great to see, to just, again, hearing from students on what the student experience is. It's really important, not only to us, but, I think to our entire community. Content creation actually has been really big this year. We're actually very excited for your meetup, Dustin, on the topic, but also just seeing all the different platforms, everything from, I think we're going to have a workshop on using TikTok to write thesis statements, to how to use podcasting, to how to use film, which has just been really, really cool, I think, to see how more of these technological mediums, as they're advancing, not just in education, but what impact they're having there. I'd be remiss to not mention metaverse, AI, data science, a lot of these terms that we're seeing, again, more broadly, but really kind of seeing these implementations in education, I think, is always really exciting. always new, always fresh, always innovative. Even year over year, we've definitely, we've had sessions on these topics before. We'll continue to have sessions on these topics in the future. But in a given moment, you're able to see how these things are progressing. And I think that's really great. The last few things that I'll mention, because again, I could probably talk for hours on this, and I know Greg will want to share some of his personal favorites, what he's looking forward to as well. But Dustin, as you mentioned, of course, we are. I think it's really important to address in general the current events that are happening in the education space, both from of course, a political standpoint, but also just a cultural standpoint. And so, having those conversations, holding space for those difficult conversations in some instances is really important for us and our community. And then, as I mentioned, and frankly, as Greg mentioned before, we're always looking to make sure that we're bringing as many people to the table, to the event as possible. And not only is it making sure that we're covering everything, but it's also actively thinking about who's not at the table, and who we can engage further. Something that we paid attention to a lot this year, and really wanted to increase the conversations that we were having on the program, was surrounding Indigenous voices and issues in the education space. We're really looking forward to having a conversation that specifically focuses on Native higher education, which will be a session presented by the Native Forward Scholars Fund and Montana State University. And that's just one example. So yeah, that's, like I said, I could probably keep going and going, but I know that I definitely know that Greg has some other things that he's looking forward to, so I'll pass it along to him.
I think Julia, as the programming director, has such a great insight into all the goodness on the program, and so I appreciate all the highlights from that. One of the things that I'll call out is sort of how we create a lot of the programming at the event. You talked about, Dustin, South by Southwest EDU serving as sort of a professional home, and I think we like to reflect community back and how we approach programming more broadly. And so, for those that are unaware, we do a crowdsourced programming platform called Panel Picker that allows community to submit programming ideas, allows folks to then vote on those ideas, and advisory board to chime in. And so, a lot of the trends and the topics we're seeing at the event this year are actually things that the community has shared that they've been thinking about for the last 9 or 10 months, and really think elevate need for a conversation and discussion at the event. So it's really exciting to see all that kind of come together. For my part, I think there are two things that have been always, I think, at top of mind, especially as we think about how South by Southwest's role within education and convening this event has been sort of the intersection of culture and learning, and how those things come together, and bringing unique voices to the stage to really talk about the impact of learning in their journey. One of our keynotes this year is going to be the architect Frank Gehry in conversation with his sister, Doreen Gary Nelson, talking about design-based learning in education, which we are just thrilled to have. That blend of a practicing architect and artist in the field, and an educator, really talking about how you blend those things and how you bring that to fruition, and for the two of them to lean back on 50 or 60 years worth of work, and how that's played out over the course of their careers, is going to be super exciting to see in person. We also have a conversation between two very notable athletes, Christy Yamaguchi and Eric Armstead, talking about their foundation work in education, and sort of their perspective coming to the table. We even have the Variety Educator of the Year doing a performance, and a U.S. Poet Laureate talking about their pursuit to identity through art. So I think the cultural tie-in in education, and the opportunity to sort of thread that needle from both the art side and the education side, and the impact that's having, is a really cool sort of space for South by Southwest EDU to be able to shine a light. As it relates to higher ed, I think beyond artificial intelligence being a big trend in the coming year, I think research and development in educational products, and sort of the impact that it's going to have better, research backing for what's working in efficacy practice around education products, is going to be a big through line. Julia talked about our partnership with Learn and the expo floor, and being able to sort of highlight, all the things on the expo floor that are having efficacy and impact with their tech products, but also we have a featured session with the U.S. Department of Education and a few other leaders talking about that as well. So those are a few things. I mean, I think Julie and I could probably talk for well over an hour about all the fun things we're excited about. It's a really big program, but we're excited to bring people together and talk about what's going on in learning.
Well, and it's funny. The punchline that I kind of think of is like, because on one hand, it's like, yeah, you'd want to be like super responsive to the things that are happening right now. But I feel like if it was like too responsive, because again, like you have the idea of like, okay, well, like what are things that people have kind of been like sitting with and, thinking about over like the span of some months when, things go through panel picker and all that kind of stuff. But like, I feel like so many articles and hot takes are coming out right now about like ChatGPT, and that'd be like half of the like session schedule just be like that being like, I don't know what this is, what do we do about it? So it's like good to kind of have that balanced approach where it's like, yeah, that's in there, that's been around for a few months, but we're not gonna like kind of get too noisy about it. But because yeah, like you said, I mean, you were kind of highlighting kind of the diversity and the breadth of just the the content types and the topics and the folks that will be having those conversations. And I know the one which is certainly very timely and kind of I'm sure was kind of anticipating this a bit around educating incarcerated individuals, where there's been policy changes around that which greatly impacts it, but there obviously needs to be a lot of conversation around that, because my worry is that as it is with things like this, sometimes there's going to be this sort of like gold rush where it's just like, oh, cool, a bunch more students who can get Pell Grants or something. And it's like, it's very much easier said than done to, deliver education, quality education to, folks who are incarcerated. So I know I'm really excited about that one. And I think something else just in terms of how you all are sort of delivering the conference itself and the content of it that I was really impressed with last year was the EDU online, the live digital experience, and having that be something that's kind of, happening in tandem. So whether you're on site and you missed something, you could catch it, or, if you can't be there, you can kind of have an exclusive experience that kind of shepherds you through, a lot of the kind of, big keynotes and like larger sessions and stuff like that. So, and I guess, Greg, if you want to just tackle this one, like kind of the thought process around creating that and sort of, why that was important, obviously coming out of the pandemic, to sort of have that be kind of happening in tandem with the on-site event.
Well, I mean, needless to say, as event organizers, the last 2 years have been both challenging and informative in terms of just finding creative and new ways to reach community and sort of share the same work and ideas that's going on in the education space in new forms and means. And it's interesting, for many years prior to 2020, we were doing a lot of content capturing and dissemination, but the focal point of being able to do that well and effectively beyond using platforms like YouTube or SoundCloud to kind of get content out, it didn't crystallize the same way until we had to produce our very first completely online South by Southwest EDU and South by Southwest. And coming out of that experience, what we learned is that there was an opportunity to reach people where they're at and to lower the barriers to access an event by not having necessarily to travel to Austin, Texas to participate. But there is great value in being face-to-face, and that is still sort of the bread and butter of South by Southwest, is coming together in person in Austin. But there's just such value to sharing the ideas and the work that's going on and creating a platform to support that going forward, both as you were talking about, sort of in a real-time hybrid environment, but also with some longer tail for folks to continue to engage in the content has been super important. So this year we are tackling another hybrid event. You'll be able to watch keynotes and featured sessions live. We actually worked again this year with Carrie Byron from Mythbusters fame to do a live studio where we're doing in-depth interviews with a bunch of the key leaders at the event about education. You can kind of unpack content in the context of a sort of pre-planned presentation, but the informal conversations that happen in the studio, I think, allow us to go, one or two layers deeper in that context, and is a really great add to the event. We also have a few other sessions that'll be available live. We know that there is a robust network and community that's available. So there's like one-on-one networking, there's some live chat opportunities, as well as Q&A. And I think for us, being able to connect it into that live experience so that there is an element that is live in real time, you can engage with the same keynote that the folks sitting in the room are engaging with, or the same featured session makes it a really special moment. It sort of builds that moment that, hi, from, I'm from Delaware, coming at you from Delaware, but really there's also an audience of a couple thousand people in the room, and you're able to ask questions and engage. So for us, we think that going forward, being able to continue to provide some sort of digital experience is going to be an important part. But it's not. I think we have learned a lot that producing a fully in-person event takes a lot of energy. Producing a fully online event takes a lot of energy, and then doing them in tandem takes maybe double the amount of energy. And so we're continuing to refine that process, but there's a lot of opportunity with it.
Kudos to you for tackling it, because I will say, to sort of my kind of cursory observation of a lot of, I guess, higher education, at least, events, is like, I don't feel like anybody else has really gotten it yet. Like, they'll either do like what something feels very separate, or the one that I do not understand at all is where they have an on-site event and then an online one like 3 weeks later. And I'm like, I don't really get that, because again, that's like literally separate. You're like doing the same thing twice or whatever, but like having it feel like the hybrid, and obviously like you're not getting the full experience like you said, but like you're kind of getting the best of, and you can still engage, so it's like, okay, I want to be like sitting at my desk while this is happening to kind of feel a part of it and everything. Yeah, I think it's a great investment. I hope, again, whatever shape it takes, there's always a little something of that experience moving forward. But yeah, I'd really liked how you all put that together. But Julie, on kind of the content front, a question that I had was, we've talked about kind of the breadth of the themes and the session types and everything, just sort of to bold, underline, circle this kind of point, like, because like how Greg mentioned, like the origins of this was like a Texas focused K through 12 event. Like, there's an alternate universe out there that was just like, you know what? No, we're going to put walls up. This is it. It's just for this. Nobody else is welcome, whatever. And it's like, fine, cool, whatever. Yeah, you can do whatever you want. But obviously, again, like, it is that space for so many different people to collide and share thoughts and collaborate and network and all those sort of things. Like, what is it to you that makes that so valuable to bring all those diverse professionals together? Like, I don't know if there's just maybe like an anecdote or just any sort of broader thoughts that you have of like why that's such an important part of kind of the DNA of this event.
It's been said already, to your point, like underlining and circling. I think that, so much of education broadly is more siloed, both in the US and globally. And some of that is out of necessity, right? There's different educational levels, there's different subjects, there's just some things do obviously have to be done differently. And so not, this is said with absolutely no kind of detriment to any other events that focus specifically on, middle school math instruction or higher ed administration or anything like that. They do what they will, and they do it very well, and frankly we see ourselves as a complement to those kinds of events and those kinds of convenings and to all of those communities. But the magic of our event, I think, really does lie in the people that come to it, in our community. I mean, I think that we like to say a lot of the times that we're not just event planners, we're community builders. And I think that for what we're trying to do, that is really where it lies. We work to create space for people to share those new ideas, to evolve those new ideas, to build upon them with one another. We try to create space for people to have difficult conversations on a lot of topics. We try to hold space to, for folks to have really, kind of blue sky, out of the box thinking. And really that energy, we create the platform, and we amplify and we celebrate it. But a lot of what we do, I think, really comes from those folks. In terms of, an anecdote, Dustin, I think you already, probably gave us one of the best anecdotes. The fact that, you were walking on the show floor, you met somebody, and now this has led to a new professional opportunity for you. We've had EdTech Women launched actually at South by Southwest EDU in 2013. And we've had a lot of advisory board members that have moved moved throughout kind of the education space, from the classroom to leadership to education business. Another great story is, I believe, actually also in 2013, Clever and Kahoot both participated in our launch competition, and now, not only have they merged, but they're leaders in the ed tech space. And so, being able to have stories like that, and to see kind of what kind of what the event was as a starting point for a lot of people, I think is really gratifying and really special, and something that, we feel really privileged to have. But I think that really the energy and the magic again isn't, again, it's not just about what we build as a program. Don't get me wrong, I'm really proud of what we do, obviously, and we're really intentional, and we really believe in the program as it is and how we've built it. But so much of the event also is in those serendipitous encounters attendees have on the show floor, at networking events, while doing karaoke, meeting, who's sitting next to them between sessions, in line to see something. For everybody who's been to South by Southwest EDU before, big shout out to the Hilton lobby. We hear it all the time that that's some of where people's, most valuable time was spent. So I think that, ultimately it's really about those connections. And I think that's what makes, and obviously the more diverse of a group of people, from viewpoint, from industry background, to job profile, to role, to the diversity in that is really what makes these, again, serendipitous encounters really that much more powerful. And to be able to, hear at least one, usually a lot more, specific example every year, having somebody come up to us and be like, hey, I met so and so at the event last year. This year we're doing a session together, or this year we're in business together, or frankly, we have even heard, and this year we're getting married. So it's really special, and I think you said it actually the best, Dustin, which frankly our entire team has been so high on, is this idea of a professional home. It's something that we, again, are really grateful that our community sees us in that way, that sees the value of what we build in that way. We're really proud of what we can deliver, and I think that ultimately, and again, it bears repeating, but just what we're able to kind of conceptualize in an actual experience is, what Greg mentioned is, that student journey, and that, really everything that really speaks the best to what we're trying to do, from early learning to K-12, higher ed, and continuing and professional development as well. We really want to honor the entire learning life cycle, because at the end of the day, whether or not you work day to day in quote unquote the education space, education is important to everybody. Everybody's an education stakeholder, whether we're talking formal education, whether we're talking about learning how to do something, around your house, you're still learning. So ultimately, I think that that's really what really makes us special.
Yeah, that's a very beautiful sentiment. I'm glad I could have teed you up from the jump for the professional home kind of tagline there. Because, yeah, I mean, I absolutely believe it. I've told people that a lot my own time. But yeah, I also was thinking like that you have to put that on like a T-shirt or something, where it's just like, I'm a South by Southwest EDU baby, or whatever. But I will say another anecdote. I forgot about this one, but I went to the like first timers like session like meetup last year, and one of the facilitators, she lives in this same small Delaware town that I live in, and I like went up to her after the session was over, like, so you live in Newcastle, Delaware, like literally that town, because like the county also is called that, and like so whatever. She was like, yeah, and like, yeah, we live like less than 5 minutes away from each other. So now we've like continued to like connect, and we'll go to each other's houses over this past year and everything. And yeah, it's those sort of things where it feels like, I had an amazing time, having sort of those like kind of random collision conversations. And then there's been, on top of that, really kind of deeper core connections that have sustained and everything. In addition to those. So there's obviously, yeah, just such a kind of hive of activity and connections that I've made, and obviously so many others have as well. But yeah, I mean, it is like such a powerful point too. Like you said, that like we are all stakeholders in education, because like we all benefit from being in a society of people who are educated, and all that. So it really is just like, well, how are you coming at this? Because like wherever you are, there should be something that resonates, at the event. I think that is something, like you said, like it is such a beautiful complement to all the other kind of more specialized things, where I know for me, like I'll sometimes just kind of look at the, the event and just be like, this just doesn't feel like for me. Like it, and I'm sure that they would, scoff at that, be like, oh, no, everybody's welcome. But it's just like, yes, and I'm sure I could, try to carve out my niche at some place, but it's like, yeah, like you are choosing to focus in on something, and that's going to be hyper relevant to those people that you serve. But like, yeah, in addition to that, it's nice to have a space where, yeah, you can just sort of, start to branch out and see, okay, how can I do things that help better serve, yeah, like students who are coming through from K through 12, or, going out to the workforce, or any of those sort of things. So, um, yeah, really powerful stuff. And I guess I think a great place to end here. The conference is coming up as of the posting of this in just a few short weeks, but whether it is at the event coming up, or if people are thinking about maybe they might want to attend in the future or get involved in some other way. And we'll start with you, Greg, on this one. Advice that you would give for folks for getting involved in the event.
Well, I think your experience sort of speaks to it, in many ways. That I think if last year was your first year, I think you also spoke last year. And so you participated in Panel Picker. You kind of went on the journey of bringing an idea to the table, having it, go through that process, getting selected to speak and share that work at the event, and then participate in the first ever podcast stage. So, I think for us, it's really like, first off, like, come attend the event, come experience it, come join us in Austin in March. It's March 6th through 9th. There's no better way to kick off 2 weeks of South by Southwest. It's a South by Southwest sort of celebrates the creative professional, and we feel like educators and the education profession is a great way to kind of get that creative professional work going, and a way to launch that experience. So, one, join us in Austin. I'd say two, think about how you want to show up in future years. Panel Picker will launch next summer as we think about 2024 and beyond. And we have all sorts of applications for the film program, for performances, for our startup competitions. We support a high school student startup competition. So sort of at any age level and interest, think about how you want to show up and participate. And then I think long term, Julia said this, I think earlier, but, we see ourselves as community organizers. And, we started, yes, as a Texas K-12 event, and have grown over the years into a much broader community. And that's in part by listening to the community and hearing what we're doing well and what we're missing, and if that's something that you want to share with us, we'd love to hear. So I consider myself and really the whole South by Southwest EDU team as being super accessible. Shoot us an email, reach out. Like, we'd love to start a dialogue and think about how we can better support the work you're doing in this space. That's literally the most exciting part of our job. And to see it come to life once a year is awesome, but we love to do it all year.
First off, echoing everything that Greg said, of course, definitely come see us. To steal again Dustin's line, come find your professional home, March 6th through 9th. We really won't put that on a t-shirt, I feel like. But, we do really try, and this speaks a little bit to what both of you were saying. We really do try to create an experience that supports folks at any stage of their career. So we really do hope that anybody will gain from attending, experiencing, networking with other folks. That's really important. And yeah, again, just for my part, definitely always love to chat more about Panel Picker. As Greg mentioned, most of our programming opportunities that are application based will open in the summer, towards the end of June, beginning of July. And we'll definitely, provide kind of more resources and things like that, especially for folks it might be their first year getting involved in that process. But as Greg mentioned, we're always here and happy to answer any questions, or bounce any ideas off of that. So I think, yeah, I mean, it really distills to, we hope you come join us, have a good time, learn something, do some karaoke, meet your new best friends. But yeah, we really, especially if you're working on something that you're not seeing at the event, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. We want to hear from you. If you're working on it, other folks probably are as well. And it's an important part of the education space.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I decided to kind of go all in from the jump of like, yeah, throwing my hat in the ring for a Panel Picker and all that. But I think, like you said, it is good advice to just sort of like dip your feet in of like going to the event, because then you get to see sort of like, oh, I like this part more than that or whatever, and see what kind of sessions are there. And, yeah, you may be inspired then to say like, yeah, I met somebody that I want to collaborate with, or I feel like something maybe is missing, and you sort of, reach out to get that feedback, or say like, you know what, I'm going to, step up and try to, let my voice be heard and those sort of things. So, and yeah, I know like there's the mentoring opportunity, like there's kind of different pathways where you can kind of like start to kind of get your foot in to be like, featured on the schedule in some way or another, or yeah. So there's a lot of different ways to kind of start to kind of graduate, involvement and everything. And I just appreciate y'all, making space for, as many people as you can at the event, and looking forward to being there in Austin with y'all in a few weeks. And just thank you all so much for sharing all that you did, and, the work that you do to put this event on and nurture the community and everything. We'll have ways to connect with each of you and South by Southwest EDU in the show notes as usual. But yeah, just thanks so much for hanging out.
Thanks for having us, Dustin. It's been great.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the podcast. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Higher Ed Geek podcast.